Thanks for coming in. Hi guys. Tonight I'm going to be talking about expanding your market reach with Android. Basically just a presentation, class, you want to think it that way about internationalization with Android. So I'm just going to hop right into it. A little bit about me for those who don't know me. My name is Donn Felker. I'm a mobile enthusiast, developer, author. I do a lot of talks and speeches around the country in regards to Android architecture. I used to speak a lot about .NET too, so I'll be speaking if anyone's going to Android DevCon in November in San Francisco. I'll be speaking up there about tablet development and giving a one-day class on it too. As well as next week here in town at the Google Technology User Group, which I think is down at Tempe, this benchmark or
Maker Bench.
Maker Bench. That's it. Thank you. Maker Bench. We're speaking down there next week about tablet development as well. So if you guys are interested, that's where you come on down. I think it's Wednesday or Thursday. Check. These are the two books I've written. The one on the left is already out, came out last December. The one on the right is going to be out this fall. Just finishing it up here very shortly, just the edits. But these are the two books I've written. I've done a couple video series as well, and I'll probably be creating an Android training class here in the next month or so that I'll be probably giving the first version here at Gangplank in the back classroom. It'll be a 5-day course if anyone's interested. So I'll be giving Gangplankers discounts. The notable Android apps that I've worked on that you guys might be familiar with is the Groupon app that some people have seen. I'm one of the developers on that team right now, consulting with Groupon. And that's kind of where the majority of my international experience kind of comes from. They brought me on to bring their Groupon app to an international market to France, Germany, UK, Brazil, and more countries now, Italy, Singapore, all that kind of stuff. So that's where the majority of all this comes from. It's a very large and complex app, even though it's actually just for deals and coupons. So there's a lot of stuff that goes on interactions. Also wrote EventDroid, which is the event check-in system for Eventbrite, which is actually a direct competitor of our Gangplanker Scott back here. So, and also with the TechPub video player, you can watch training videos online from the TechPub video series. I'm also the creator of CrossFit Travel, which is a travel application for people who are interested in CrossFit. Here's a little overview of what we're going to cover kind of wide. I'm going to be talking about Android and not maybe iOS or WP7 or anything else. The global market breakdown, I got a bunch of graphs and kind of charts, actually no graphs, a bunch of charts illustrating why Android is going to be where you want to go, maybe what countries you want to move into, which will lead us into the initial top 5 countries you're going to probably want to try to push for based upon some statistics and also a little bit of my opinion of working with it for a little bit. Again, that's my opinion. We'll get to that and you guys can decide where to go from there. We'll briefly touch on the Android market, a limitation of it, and also some of the features. And then we'll spend a lot of time into prepping your app, kind of what you need to do, things to look out for. And then briefly touch on testing your app, and we'll finish up with some questions and kind of just go over if you guys are trying to internationalize an app or you have any questions about that. I'll see if I can help you right now. Probably shouldn't even take the full hour. So we'll just let on into it. If you guys have any questions, feel free to just interrupt me. Totally cool with you. Don't wait till the end. Just interrupt me whenever. There's a couple expectations. You just have basic Android exposure. You maybe have just kind of fiddled around with it a little bit. You've seen it. Maybe you created a new project. The it depends scenario really depends on your scenario. So how am I going to do X, Y, or Z? It kind of really depends. Android's going to handle a lot of the localizations of strings, text for you pretty easily. Some of the other things, such as, look, I have an API in the US that handles US and Canada, but I have another API in Germany that handles UK, Germany, Spain, and so forth for latency issues. And I got another one in Singapore. How am I going to handle that? Well, it just depends. I've done it, I've been there, I can help you figure it out, but I'll kind of handle those as they go along. What is not, I'm not going to fire up a new app here. I'm not going to write something from scratch in front of you and code samples here on the screen. Afterwards, after the presentation, we can hop into IntelliJ or whatever you're familiar with and kind of pack on some code if you're interested. So, at that time, so you guys are an hour. So why Android? The first thing I always say when I'm giving talks on Android and you think about minimum viable product or a business or anything like that, in my opinion, it's the fastest to market. I've released a couple apps now, and mainly the app CrossFit Travel, which is probably the most successful paid app, has a 4,000 installs right now, about $1.99 a piece. And what that app was a pure example of creating a minimum viable product and pushing it out through Android to see if it would even work. Initially built it and put it on the market and just to see what it would do in a week and told myself, look, if I made $30 in the first week for selling at 99 cents a pop, $30 50 copies, then if this is viable, I just need to approve it and scale it out a little bit more and market it. I did that. Within a week, I was able to tell from a few days of development that I had a product that was actually going to make a little bit of residual income. And so I was able to upgrade it, push it to market. For anyone who has developed or has not developed an Android Mat application and pushed it out to the market, it's very simple. Build the app and then simply go into the developer portal and say publish. Your app's going to be there from a few seconds up to 30 minutes, about a 30-minute window it takes to kind of show up in the Android market. Compare that to Apple or Windows Phone at this point in time. We're looking at a week, weeks, a month. Sometimes you don't even know how long it's going to take. Here you can get quick feedback from the users, right away. They're using it right away. You'll get stats within the Android developer portal, meaning errors and comments within 3 hours of them purchasing the app. So anytime you need to make an iteration of the app, you need to update it, you need to change it, you need to see what you're doing, you need to push it out to Japan or push it out to Germany. It's easy to do. You upload a new file, you say, hey, now it's enabled for Germany. Or maybe you're already supporting all countries, it's just everyone defaults to English. We'll cover that in a second. But now you're just going to upload some new German strings with it. People in Germany, next time they install your app or update it, also now they see German strings if they use the German account. Talk about that. So speaking of countries, this is a screenshot from about 3 hours ago for CrossFit Travel. Up on top, you can see it's $1.99, and all the checkboxes here, I've selected them all, so I want my app available in all countries. My app is actually only written in English right now. So I have not written support CrossFit Travel in any other language. However, if you are in any one of these countries, you can still buy my app. And the numbers next to it, so you see euro 1.40, so that's how much it's going to cost in euros. The autofill button, what that does at the top, if your app is a charge, it will take today's currency rate at this given moment. If you autofill, it will take $1.99 US dollar, and convert it into all the currencies right now given the time. So if tomorrow, maybe the euro for $1.99, the euro is equated to $1.21 euro. If you went back into autofill tomorrow, it would readjust it to $1.21. Unfortunately, it's not rolling. So we do it every day as you go along. Hopefully, that's a new feature we'll do. But right now, you can, as soon as you upload the app, you get autofill, populate all the values in there. Which also gives you another option. If, for example, you're realizing you're supporting a country, maybe Finland is a ton of support queries from Finland. It's just becoming a real pain for you. You can kind of start testing your pricing strategy in Finland to offset that support cost you have. So instead of charging €1.40 for it, you start charging €5 for it in Finland only because maybe for some reason the Finnish have a problem with your app and it's not working correctly or receives more support. So they kind of give you options if you want to actually provide the value. Otherwise, it's just going to be based on the current value, which is in this case $1.99. Have this autofill. As they add new countries, we'll kind of start popping in here. Down the bottom, if Taiwan is crossed out, I'm not sure why Taiwan is crossed out. I just noticed that today. I'm going to look into that. When I clicked on it, nothing happened, so I'm not sure if they're working through payment terms or for some reason my app's just restricted. I'm not sure. You'll also notice there's no China here. So the app is not available. You cannot sell apps in China right now. There's something Google has going on with China with purchasing and selling of apps over there where they can come to an agreement. It was available for a while from what I heard, and then it is unavailable. So at this point in time, there is no China. I'll touch on that again in a moment because it's kind of an important note.
It's like some of the countries don't have prices. Right?
Yes. So it's going to default to whatever your $1.99 USD is, and they're going to do the transaction on there. Yes. Only certain countries can be customized.
There's some Middle East stuff. I mean, aside from Israel.
Yes. So these are only the supported countries they have right now. There is no Iraq or anything like that yet. So when they first came out, I think they only supported like 10 countries. So on each revision of the Android market and Android SDK, you usually see 20 new supported countries and so forth. The other cool thing, if you guys have a side thing I just noticed the other day, when you upload your app now, you can actually tell it what devices you want it to work on or not supported at all. So for some reason, your app, uses a specific Bluetooth component that only works on HTC phones, does not work on Samsung, so you can only select HTC phones, which is kind of nice. So you can actually tell it where you can actually sell it to. So someone who has an HTC phone will see the app for sale, but the guy with a Samsung phone will say, oh, I don't have it in my market because the market's filtered it out for them. So it's kind of nice. So we get a couple little charts here, the global market breakdown. This is, the top line is probably the most interesting, but actually there's a whole bunch of data on this chart. It's pretty interesting. But the two numbers I've circled here, which is the mobile cellular subscribers in millions, so 1.4 billion. We have 1.4 billion cellular subscribers in the developed nations, United States, Canada, UK, those types of countries. But in the developing nations, we have 3.8 billion mobile subscribers. And if you look directly at those numbers, you'll see that per 100 people, looks like on average, at least one person has a cellular phone out here, on average. Those again taking some people have 3, some people have 0. But they're saying more, on average, more than one person has a cell phone, so some people have 2, 3. While in developing nations, only 67% of people actually have mobile cellular plans. And if you look at the numbers, how big difference they are. So the developing nations, US, UK, all those ones, we are below half of what the developing nations are. So the market that we're in, that you're selling to the United States, is actually smaller than what you can have available to you. So now as soon as Google opens up more and more countries to support the cellular app to, you'll actually go to open up to a much wider market. So we're actually only, at this point in time, probably looking at under 60% of the market. We'll get to that number in a second. So you kind of see that more of the numbers here as well. If you're interested, I have, after all the graphs and charts, there is a QR code you can scan if you're interested in the document where I got all this information from. It's from LOCALIZATION.com. They've aggregated just a slew of data that's, I don't know, you probably print it off like 30, 40 pages long. There's charts and graphs and different statistics. So the global stats here, this is kind of where it gets interesting with India and China. I said there's no China available in the cell apps right now. So right now the mobile growth is driven by the developing nations, not actually by the ones that are already developed, which is kind of interesting. So the two countries, China and India, just in 2010, their new subscribers beat out all the entire count of US total subscribers. So just their new additions in 2010 were more than all of the United States. So that's just a huge number just for two countries. So if we think about that, we're a pretty small chunk of the pie when it comes to cellular. Through reading the article, you also see that the United States is actually pretty far behind in the mobile transactions and commerce of the internet and so forth for mobile. So also these global stats here help us see that the United States is maybe 35% of just these three countries here. So we have 35%. We're basically at 60%. I'm sorry, 35% of China's total mobile subscribers at this point. So which is kind of an important thing if we can't sell our app in China. That stinks because China has the most mobile users in the world. So it's kind of stinks we can't sell there. There's a problem with Google between that and China. I don't know if there's any restrictions with iOS and MP7. I'm not sure, but I always know that it's very difficult to sell stuff in China. Now there are other markets you can get it to. I've had many developers from China contact and say, hey, well, give us your source code and we'll translate it. That's not happening for me. But they'll offer to do that for you. You can also find users if someone wants to translate into Chinese and your app's free, then that's no problem at all. You can put it up there and you can download it for free as well. So just kind of some interesting numbers for mobile stats. So there's a little bit more about the mobile Android proof of why I'm using it to test it, because some estimates have proven that 2011 is going to make Android the #1 smartphone operating system. And by 2015, it's going to have up to 631 million smartphones will be sold, and approaching about half of those will all be Android. So that's a pretty huge number. And so it's kind of backed up by this right here. The top line, non-bolded characters. We'll see Android right now, 2009. Right now, 2009 at 3.9%, and this year it's estimated at 38.5%. And if we look at iOS, a couple lines down, it's at 19.4. All the way to the far right, you're going to see market share in the growth. So you kind of see where each one of them lies. The interesting thing here is that it does say that Android's going to be at 48%, so you're going to get the largest market share when you release your app to these different countries. You're going to get more exposure, you're going to get more people using your app. The interesting thing is actually Windows Phone here, which I expect to see 2015 market share is more than iOS. So it jumped from 5.6% in 2011 to 19.5%. And you see Symbian drop from 19.2 to 0.1%. So there's got to be a little more documentation on that, and I'm sure it's inside of the ginormous document where I got this information. It's just something interesting that I noticed. So kind of a little bit more background information. So the top 5 operators across the world that you might be interested in to help you kind of make your decision about where do I release? Do I release in China? Do I release in the US, UK, Germany, and so forth? You can here's a couple different things you can look at. Total revenues, that's kind of important. Where is the revenue coming from? You see China's at the top, almost all the way across the board here. So revenue is going to be important, subscribers is going to be important because the more people can get your hands to it, the more money they're going to spend, the better for you. And the ARPU, that's average revenue per user. So the UK actually has the most average revenue per user. So people in the UK actually spend more on a mobile phone than any other country, according to these operators, which is going to be like, in our country, like T-Mobile, AT&T, stuff like that. Once you see total revenues, number 2, AT&T US, I'm going to assume that's all iPhone probably, for the most part. And maybe a couple things in Android now. Then we got Verizon, which again, the big Android push. And then we kind of get sparsed out here. So a couple of different ones here is the average revenue per user. You actually see Ireland, and that's the first I actually saw of Ireland. I didn't even know about that until I found this document. Ireland was up that high. And Switzerland. So, and my research and my testing has actually been a little bit different, but these are kind of the numbers that they found from a large sample set. The thing to note here is that the top 5 operators do not mean that's the best top 5 places for you to sell your app, because if your app is maybe a translation app for Chinese, I mean, it's not going to do any good for you in Germany or France or something like that. So it's kind of depends on your market. Yes, it depends on your app. It kind of falls into the it depends type of scenario. In my experience, these are the top 5 places, and there's actually one about 6. It's free. Top 5 places to release in. The text is kind of small on the sides here, so I'm going to go ahead and read it. For Japan, it says, a much higher percentage of Japanese people use the mobile internet than any other country, according to official stats. Again, that's from mobilethinking.com. On the right, it says, in my opinion, your research may prove otherwise, again, depending upon your app and your niche and where your application and business model is located. And then China. There are more mobile internet users in China than any other country at this point in time. So again, in China, if your app's free, go ahead and release it there. Charge, you can't release it right now. So I found releasing in Japan, Germany, United Kingdom, France, Brazil, and France does a lot of things. First, it exposes you to many different countries. Second, it exposes you to many different character sets. So you're going to be introduced to kanji type characters in Japan. You're going to be introduced to France, to French. And the reason why I bring up French is actually probably the language that's the longest and most verbose when you're testing your app. So normally if you have something that says buy now on a bus, in France it might be like 4 or 5 words long for whatever reason. I mean, I may be using a bad example on French, but a couple small syllable words in English sometimes translate to many words inside in French. And so what ends up happening is all of a sudden now things that you were thought in your application were only going to be 1 line tall, so you only design your layout to 1 line tall. All of a sudden now 2, the image gets bumped out, all of your layout just kind of explodes because something's not 2 lines. So you're going to have to think about these things and testing. It's always test with your different languages. And you're going to be used to, you eventually get used to flipping through your phone, knowing exactly what button to press on, because you can't read the language, you just use the icons that change it around. All these stats, if you guys are interested, you can find them here. I'll also upload this presentation to my website if you guys are interested. You can download it there as well. So before we get into actually prepping your app, it's good to think, is your app a fit to go international? The reason why I say that is because 3 out of 4 apps that are installed on mobile devices are only opened once and never opened again. Kind of surprising actual fact. So someone downloads your app, they open it up, 75% chance they're never going to open it again, unless it's something that they really, really need or really like or really enjoy. So here's some of the favorite activities from consumers around the world. See in media entertainment, we got social networking, local information like local news, stuff like that. Basic news, CNN, headline news, web, BBC, music, games, and then videos like YouTube, stuff like that. Travel and mapping, you're going to go with the mapping directions, your research travel, maybe you're using like TripIt, maybe you're using Kayak or something like that, or Monk. Banking and finance, you're going to look up your bank, reconcile your bank, check balancing, budgeting. And then there's a lot of shopping, of course, Amazon, and there's a whole breakdown there. So it's going to be the top ones. My app, for example, CrossFit Travel, is a very niche app that was only designed for people interested in a certain type of fitness. And I knew that if I just put it out there, it was one of the few apps that was out there that was going to get organic traffic from search. So I just kind of gave it a shot and decided to give myself low enough numbers. Hey, if I sell 30, I can kind of make sure that it's worth it my time based upon whatever you can rate yourself at to see if it's worth it or not. I know You probably do the same thing with your stuff blue as well, kind of see if it's going to work for you. So prepping your app. This is going to be kind of right into the guts of Android here a little bit, so we're going to see some code. So what you need to do here, the first thing is define a localization strategy. How are you going to attack localization on your application? On the left-hand side, we have strings, so it's going to be text that you see in your app, like buy now, like thank you for logging in, Bob, and all those kind of different types of strings that you're going to see in your app. The application name is a string. Anything that's a string in your application should be in the strings.xml file. There should be no hard coding in the layouts. There should be no hard coding in the actual Java files. You'll actually find yourself, if you're localizing your app, finding all kinds of places you never knew you hard coded things, because you'll put it inside of Spanish, expecting to see all the Spanish, and all of a sudden you'll start seeing English all over the place. Well, I missed that. You have to go dig through your Java files. It's a pain sometimes. Where is that at? If you've extracted your code enough, or if you're using components, sometimes it's buried 3 levels down and it's being concatenated from 4 different places, and it's just a complete nightmare to put back together. So if you can at all times, put your stuff in strings XML, you'll save yourself a ton of time later when and if you decide to go into a localization area. There's also, you're going to have to worry about dates. So how do dates look? In the United States, we have month, day, year, 8/10/2011. In the UK, it's different. It's 10/8/2011. So the dates can look different. Currency is going to be different. You know, in Brazil, use the real. It's called the Brazilian real. We have pounds in Britain. We have euros. We have all kinds of different currencies out there, so you have to make sure you're using that. And then there's also address format. This is one that most people forget. Addresses around the world are different. Here in the United States, we do the street number, street name, and maybe any drive or whatever, and then city, state, zip. Around the world, I can change to street name, then street number. I can also have city and state. State cannot even be there. Zip code can be in the front, which can be zip code, then state or city. So it can kind of be a big Cartesian of how everything's going to align together. So you need to kind of think about that. The thing that's nice is on the left-hand side, we've got the strings, the layouts, the images, anything inside the resource folder, which I'm going to show you a picture of here real shortly. Anything in the Android resources folder of your project, Android's going to handle it as long as you follow their rules. You can put a hyphen for values, -es. So anytime a user is using the Spanish, it's going to use from that Spanish folder for the strings or the images, anything like that. The dates and currency and address formatting, though, that's stuff that you're going to have to do by yourself. And that stuff's going to be handled by Android and Java. The reason why I say Android and Java is because the actual date formatting is a little bit tricky. There's actually 2 objects in Android, which I'll cover, the gotchas, which handle date formatting. And I'll show you a screen of how that's kind of can throw you off a little bit. Currency you have to handle with the currency formatter. And also, dates, you also want to be careful. If you're always used to using a simple date format for formatting, you want to actually use the date formatter built into Android to make sure you're getting the correct format back. And the address format, you'll kind of have to build your own little parsing mechanism to make sure that you get the addresses correctly according to how each country says in the ISO specification. So here's a picture of the Android resources. This is from a current project that I'm working on right now. There's a lot of resources in here. The ones that we're going to worry about right now are the values folders. Those are where you're going to put the strings.xml. That's where all the text of your application is going to be. They're going to be inside of all these values folders here. So we have values. This is the default values folder. So as soon as you start up an app, you're always going to get one values folder. It's going to have a strings XML in it. That's going to be your English language string. That's the default for Android. So it's always going to be that. And then as soon as you start customizing your app, you'll have these different values down here. So before you can decide what folders you need, you got to ask yourself another strategic question of, are you going to support different regions and different languages? And what I mean by that is, let's think of Spanish. We have American Spanish. We have Spanish in Mexico. We have Spanish in Spain. Probably many other places too as well. Let's just use those 3 as an example. Each of those dialects can actually have small differences in certain phrases anywhere you go. So are you going to support each one of those, which you can do, or are you just kind of fall back and gracefully degrade and just say, hey, I'm just going to handle all of Spanish the same way. So you kind of have to decide what you want to do. In my case, with a minimum viable product, I'll always scale back. I'll start with English, see if people like it, and then if I want to expand to Spanish, I'll just support the Spanish language as a whole. And if I decide, all right, now I need to really focus in and make the Spanish from Spain my perfect, I'll then create some resources for that. I'll show you right now how to do that. So again, this is the default US strings. That's what they're going to be defaulted to. Here is the Spanish strings. So that's where all your Spanish strings are going to go. So you have another strings, that XML file inside there. They'll all contain values, and I'll show you what it looks like. So we have value of ES if you're in Spain and you're set to Spanish. If you're in the US, set to Spanish. Or if you're in Mexico, set to Spanish. Or anywhere else, set to Spanish. It's going to pull the strings here, which is kind of cool. Now, let's say, for example, the United States, we say things a certain way in English. Over in Great Britain, they say things sometimes completely different that doesn't make any sense at all. So maybe you might want to say, I'm going to buy 4 gallons of gas, or a gallon of gas is $3.99. Well, in Great Britain, it might be, 3.2 liters of petrol is €6 or whatever that might be. So you want to say it differently. So what I have in here is I've now specified values, -en, which is a language code, the ISO language code, -r, which stands for region, GV. So Great Britain, in this case, is the Great Britain region. So the only time this would ever get executed is if my phone was set inside of English United Kingdom settings. Some of your phones may not have this on there. You may not have never seen this. The Nexus 1 does have it. All the plain vanilla Android app phones, such as the Nexus phones, usually have all of a large subset of regions. And if you don't, I'll show you an app you can install and actually install the locale on your phone to see how it reacts. So in this case, they were set to UK English. We would pull all the strings, and they're showing a gallon of petrol is €4.99 or whatever, if that's what you had in your strings. Otherwise, we'll just use anything else in here. A couple of the ones you may see here: DE, Germany, France, Italy, and Portuguese. So I could add at the end of the Portuguese one, I could actually say values -PT -RBR to mean Brazilian Portuguese. So I could actually break it down a little bit further. But here I'm actually saying, if you're in Portugal, then you're probably reading Portuguese, and your phone says Portuguese, you use Portuguese. If you're in Brazil, you're probably reading Portuguese, it's going to use that as well. If you're in Brazil set to English, it's going to use English. So it's flowing back to the grid gracefully. If you're in Romania, I don't really know what language came out of me, but it's not here. If you're in Romania, it's going to default back to English by default. If you can't find it, Android is basically going to open up your app. It's going to look at the resources in the phone and say, all right, what's the locale we're set to? Say, okay, it looks like we're set to Spain. Okay, well, what language are you set to? It says, okay, it looks like you're set to Spanish. First thing it's going to look for, it's going to come through here and look for values -ES -R -ES. It's going to look for Spain, Spanish. Well, in this instance, it's going to say, no, sorry, I can't find that. I can't find it. So it says, hey, the next best thing is just give me a Spanish folder. So Ryan's going to come scan down this folder again and say, yep, looks like I found it. I'm going to use that one now. So it's going to start using all those strings. So it's going to gracefully degrade as it can. Any questions on that at all? So here's some string localization. Here's how it's kind of working here. This is the default strings file on the left here. So we have an app name, which we see at the top here, example code. And then we have just the word friend. We got a word friend printed on the screen. That's the same thing over there. That's the Spanish strings. And notice on this one, I have ES hyphen examples, and then I've actually translated this one with my excellent Spanish skills to Amigo. And that one's printed on the screen, Amigo here. Notice that the app name, which is printed by Android in the title bar by default, is set to ES examples. And so this is actually running my Nexus 1 that I just took a picture of today. And you can see how the text is automatically handled. I didn't have to do anything in the background. This was handled all for me. Notice on the right, though, we have those 3 are translated. We'll talk about that in a second. So what it's actually done is kind of went through the scenario I just talked about, pulled out the ES examples and the Amigo and so forth. So here's kind of what it looks like in code. So when we were looking at the previous screen, we have friend down here in Amigo. And remember, see the string name up here is called friend. Over there, it's called friend as well. So those are the keys that Android's keying on that it's going to be using when you're building everything up. So app name. There's just different values depending on the languages, and it's just going to kind of throw different values into that location for you. So in code, you might be saying something like this: rset text string friend. You don't care what language it is. You just know that, hey, I want that text to say friend right here. In your XML layout, you may use the @string / on the left, so you're using the resource identifier for on the left, and there's no one above on the right. That's going to be the text you're seeing on the left, on the right. So notice this, that I'm actually using a string on the left, on the right, but it didn't show up. So what we're actually seeing here is how Android will gracefully degrade itself. So what it's actually done here, if you look at the red, or pink in this instance, these are all the ones that are in the English file. So maybe I was kind of doing some coding during the day. I was like, oh, I need to add these strings over here. I need to add these strings over here. I'm just kind of going away, looking at English developing as I normally would. And all of a sudden, I'm like, all right, I need to test this app in Spanish. I fire up the Spanish, and I get this. I'm like, whoa, this doesn't look right. Well, what happens is, as the code was executing, Android said, well, you know what? I found friend where Don wanted to use friend before. In this previous screen, I found friend. Okay. And it looks like I have that string over in the ES area. Friend, I'm going to use amigo. Amigo. And I'm also going to use the app name ES examples because I found that one. But on these other ones, string on the left, string on the right, and then the other one, main screen title. I forgot to circle that one. Up top here, the main screen title. That's the main screen title right here. Those ones weren't inside these Spanish strings. So what Android did said, I can't find them in the ES strings. Does anyone else have them? Where it will look by default is in the strings XML. It will always fall back to strings XML. So for some reason, you're coding and you added these strings here and not here, so pretend these were gone, and you started up the app in English, the whole app will blow up. Because, and it'll give you a build warning if you do that, if you try to build the app. If the strings don't exist in the default strings file, Android will complain when you're building saying, hey, there's no default string for this could be a problem. So you always want all of your strings to always exist in strings XML. This is for reason one, because it could blow up, and reason two, when you are localizing your application, it's easier just to rely always on the strings XML, the default one, to be your master. So then if I need to give it to my linguist, my translator, whoever, my buddy who speaks French, I can just give him the strings XML file and just be assured that, hey, everything's in here is in the app. There's nothing that's in anywhere different languages. So we're kind of getting a middle here version. If I had added these three strings down here and plugged them in, we would now see the Spanish versions if there were Spanish versions. Which kind of brings me up to the point of, you see ES hyphen here? Anytime I add a new string to my strings XML and I'm working in multiple languages, I know that I need to add it to the other strings files too. So what I immediately do, and you kind of get this habit after a while, I immediately open up the other strings files and I'll paste in example code or whatever, maybe this is on the left. So if I paste it on the left, I add a new one here called on the left. But what I do is I prefix with ES hyphen on the left. So when I started the app, let's see, ES hyphen on the left, I would know A, I put the string in there, so that's good, I did my job there, and B, I haven't translated it yet. So now if I just saw on the right, I didn't see ES before it, I was like, oh, I'm in Spanish, I forgot to put that string in the strings file. So that's a visual cue to help me remember, like, oh, the string's in there or it's not in there, and A or B doesn't need to be translated. Any questions here? Cool. So all of these things, the languages and region resources, they can all be localized. So right now we were just talking about the values folders here. So we have different types of things. You can actually localize anything here. So the drop was here. If I pull up IntelliJ real quick, is if we look over here, where I highlighted, drawable ES hyphen HTTPI. So now what's going to happen is if I fire up my app in Spanish, it's going to go and it's going to look for any of my bitmap resources. It's going to look for them in here because maybe my icon, by default, is a beautiful, there it is. Maybe it's a beautiful default Android icon, but maybe in Spanish, I want it to be ES for some whatever reason. So now when the user has the app installed, they're going to see this icon when they change their region or their language to ES, Spanish. They change it back to English, you'll see this. So this stuff not only works just on strings alone, it also works on your animation. So if you want an animation to occur differently in a different language for whatever reason, if you're using some colors and you want the colors to be different on the app, So you can kind of maybe define your theme differently. You take styles, maybe your XML, you could have differently, XML-ES. You can define your styles differently if you wanted in a different language. Different menus, all kinds of different stuff in here that you could do. So all can be localized if you really want to get creative. Most of the time, you spend your time in the strings, and you spend it in maybe the bitmaps, because maybe you have your company logo, and it has, this is Gangplank, but maybe we have like an English subtitle underneath of it. We might have to get that translated and recreate it as another bitmap, throw it in one of the folders so it actually makes sense on the Spanish version of the app. Coming to pretty close to the end here, there's a couple gotchas you gotta worry about here. This is does your app have multiple API scenario? So this could be a scenario if you have an API in Germany, you have an API in Singapore, and you have an API in US. So the US API handles US and Canada only. The API in Germany handles everything in Western Europe. So all the requests get funneled there. And there's an API in Singapore that handles all the Singapore and maybe Asia countries for all of your app. So that's something you have to handle in your code, in your HTTP code. You have to do some switching. You have to kind of figure out by yourself, what locale am I in? So am I in a locale that is based upon, am I in Singapore or am I in Germany? And then it goes and talks to that API. So there's a couple different ways you're going to have to look out to do that. You're going to use GPS if you want to find out exactly where the user is at that given moment. Because you have different scenarios, like a user who has the phone set to Singapore, but then maybe travels to Germany. Like, what do you do there? That's kind of a business decision you have to make of which API do you want them to connect to. Is it a latency issue, or do you want them to be getting specific data from the Singapore server based upon the phone settings? So that's kind of something you want to think about if you have different APIs. Usually that's only the case with larger companies who are much more globalized, but it's something you want to think about. Also, does the API that you have send back data in the language you're requesting? So maybe you only have one server that's the API server you're connecting up to. Is your data being sent back the way you expect it to? Have you handled, have you built your Rails or your Node.js API to accept the region to return back Spanish or return back maybe English or whatever you're in? So that's something you want to think about as well. So that's something that's more of a server-side localization issue, but also affects your app as well. And then you kind of can determine at that point which region you're sending up to the API to get different results back. Also, does your app ship with a database content? Mine does. The CrossFit Travel app ships with a SQLite database already embedded in the assets because it speeds up the initial launch time by about 12 seconds. So to me, that was important. I wanted people to open the app and just get going and see if they liked it or not. And it was just a real quick thing. So that's kind of created a problem for me now because I have 120 records that I ship in a SQLite database. They're all in English. So how do I handle that? Do I just leave them in English, or do I now maybe move all of those strings into the strings XML file and kind of use like little number pointers and say, hey, this is string 1, string 2, string 3 for this workout. This is the workout name. You can kind of handle it that way, or you have the app require internet access and then have it download the asset based upon the user's region up on your server. User opens the app, looks like you're in Germany. Okay, we're going to give us 45 seconds. We're going to download the assets we need to run the app. Goes up, downloads all the assets in the database to show the correct data on the app. Something I'll think about too. Or if your app is just static in nature and doesn't communicate with an API, well, then these things are a lot easier because all you got to do is really work with the strings files and so forth. Gotchas. This is the date format issue I was talking about. You go into the settings of your app, you go to date and time. You can actually select the date format. So in the US, we usually see the normal format, 12/31/2011. If you were in the UK, that would be 31/12/2011. But you can change how you want it to look. So you can actually set your US phone to look like UK, or you can change it around to look like this. So if you are actually manually, your developer has set all the dates are going to look like 12/31/2011 through a simple date formatting mechanism in their code. All the dates are always going to look like this, regardless if they're in UK or whatever. So what you want to use is you want to use the date formatter in the Android namespace. Now there's a date format object also in the Java namespace, the Java package. You have the Java package one and you have the Android package one. You want to use the one in the Android one because it will respect the user's selected date format. So even if they're in UK and they want to see the dates in American format, it will respect that and print them out accordingly. That's something just to keep in mind when you're working with the dates themselves. So a couple tips to localize here. Just remember is that determine your strategy is the number one thing. You want to find a translator. This is actually a lot easier than you would think. The best thing to do is if you have a friend that speaks the language, ask them. They're probably going to be free. You can buy them, buy them dinner or something like that, and they'll do it for you. So that's the easiest. Odesk, Guru.com, any of those outsourcing companies are great. I've purchased people off Odesk, $6.50 an hour. It takes them under an hour. I pay like $4 for someone to translate my app into German or whatever. It's great. And then I'll find someone else who maybe on some forums say, hey, can you test my app real quick? I'm just in German. And they'll give me the ups or downs on it. So it's pretty easy to find those people. Just go on there. I thought it takes 5 minutes to find a translator for a given language here when it's the ones I've posted. UK is kind of easy. I'll usually kind of roll with the US, and they can pretty much get by on that one. Japanese you can find on there. German's easy to find. Lots of Chinese on there. And Brazil, so Portuguese is on there. So any ones I've sent on the top 5 are definitely on there. Remember, base all your strings off the default strings file. So always put all the strings in that file. Don't hard code anything if you can, because it's going to bite you later. So when you're actually going to give your translator the file, you're just going to send them the strings XML file. So this can be kind of tricky because sometimes people are going to open strings XML file in like Word, and they're going to send it back to you in Word, and it's just going to be completely botched. So sometimes you might have to just manually cut them out yourself and send them all the text, just the text file. Say, here's what I need you to translate, and they'll just translate, and then you have to take the time to put it back together. If you get someone who's understands XML, and you say, hey, just open this in Notepad, don't touch the XML tags, do in the middle, then you'd be pretty well off. Otherwise, I found about 60-70% of the time they usually will translate the keys as well. So you see the C where it says app_name. They'll translate app, and they'll leave the underscore and they'll translate name. So you got all these keys are off. So you kind of have to be careful with that, and it's just a management thing at that point. And then test on HDPI and MDPI devices at a minimum. So HDPI is a high density device. That's going to be most of the devices out there these days. There are some medium density devices. That's the G1, the first Android device. There's a couple other ones out there. The Sony Xperia might be a MDPI as well. That's pretty popular in Europe. If you can't get a hold of an MDPI device, create an emulator for it, and then run it on the emulator. So that's going to be the best thing to do. The reason why I say HDPI and MDPI is because your layouts are going to be affected by the screen size. If your text is too big, it's going to blow out part of your screen in one of those areas. You're going to see most likely the MDPI is going to get hosed because it's a smaller screen. So you kind of have to look for that text. If your text is too long, what you do? There's a couple options. In iOS, for those who develop iOS apps know that text will automatically be resized into the container that it's within. Android does not have that. There is nothing that says, hey, this text doesn't fit, just make it auto-size. It does not exist. There's a couple of text views that have been written out there called auto-resize text view. They're available on GitHub and so forth that people have written. It will allow text to resize itself. If the text is too big, it kind of has a little bit of a problem. For example, if it wraps like 3 lines and it should only be 1 and it can't fit it into there, it'll do its best job, but sometimes it still looks pretty crappy. So there's a couple things like that. It won't resize stuff on buttons. There's a couple of people out there who've attempted it, but no one's really perfected the art of actually auto-resizing stuff. Testing here. When you're testing your app, try all the locales as possible. So always check for graceful degradation of the app. So we have a couple apps on here. You want to also test on a couple phones on the right-hand side. And I always try to test on all of the major themes. So vanilla Android, so Nexus 1 or something like that. You want to use HTC Sense, which will be on like the Droid, the Incredible, the Droid X, stuff like that. You're going to want to test on any Samsung device that has TouchWiz, which is their UI theme, because those things interact differently. You'll also notice that pop-up dialogues actually have different background colors and kind of encounter different areas around that. Certain things wrap differently on each one of these themes, which is mine will drive you crazy. And then also through the zoom in here too, you want to see how your app looks on a tablet, because it may work perfectly on your 10 devices you've tested it on. You throw it on a tablet and it just blows up because the screen is just way too big. So what you can do at that point is decide that you don't want to support it inside of the Android market. You also want to, like I said, check for the overflowing text. These are the 2 biggest offenders, Asian characters and French and Romanian usually are pretty verbose in kind of what they're kicking out. So those are the ones I always look out for to see if anything's kind of blowing out. Again, if it doesn't fit, you can get a hold of your translator and say, hey, this doesn't fit. I need it to be a couple words shorter. Can you give me a shorter phrase? It kind of means the same thing. And usually you can kind of get away with that if you can get away with your translator to say, can you shrink this down a little bit to make it fit. We have to do that quite a bit with the Groupon app in certain instances. Now there is an instance, if you look at your phone, like a Samsung phone, HTC phone, sometimes it only comes with like 2 locales. And that's going to be inside your settings, locations, and keyboard, I believe it's called. And then you're going to say select language or select region, depends on your manufacturer. And you're going to see in there, for me, I've got like 12. I got like English United States, English UK, English Spanish United States, Spanish Spain, Portuguese, Brazil, Dutch, all kinds of stuff. On my Samsung phone, I have English and Spanish. 101, that's all I have. So, if you want to test your app and you only have one development device or your development devices don't have the extra locale you need, you can install an app called More Locale 2 from the market. If you need to get it on the emulator, you can download the APK, just search for it online. It's all over the place. It's a free app. But what it will allow you to do is you can just hit the button here, the ISO 639 button, and choose a language. So I want Portuguese, and it'll pop in the language code here, the PT. I say, I want the country. Now I want to select the country, so I want to see what it's going to look like for Portuguese in Brazil. So go find Brazil, it'll pop in PT-BR, and then it'll show the variant here. So say PT-RBR, which would be what it's set it to. And you say set, and then you actually, in the background, you can see Czech, Spanish, United States, there's a couple other languages that give you by default. You just select it, and it says, would you like to select set this as your locale? And it actually covers all the translations and so forth within the app, from what I can tell. Well, it's supported with an Android. And it'll turn your phone, if your phone doesn't support it out of the box, to Portuguese or whatever, which is nice. So you get, when you run your app, it'll pull the correct code for that from values, resources. So that's kind of the little testing here. So test, as many devices as you can. You're going to get used to. If you can't read German, look for the icon on the phone. So you're going to see on your phone, you're looking at, there's going to be a little A next to the languages. Remember that's the A. We're going to go change the language because it might read German. So you remember the icons of how you got back to the different languages. That's the way that I've done it for 5 or 6 months now, and it's probably the best way. It's the fastest if you just learn kind of the keystrokes to get there. That kind of covers the testing component here. Kind of open it up for discussions, questions, how-tos, any other gotchas that I might have. If you guys are interested in the stats that I had at the beginning, you can scan that, and if you guys are interested in my contact info, you can scan that as well. I got some cards, so that kind of covers it. It's a high level, but it's also a huge topic, and it's one of those things. It depends on kind of how you're doing it, but the biggest piece of advice I can offer is put everything in the strings XML file if you can. Don't hard code anything like that. Be aware of how you're doing your dates, your currencies, use currency format if you want to use text formatting and formatting, and be aware if you're using addresses higher that are outputting. So something to think about. So again, opening up to discussion. So it's about putting the app out there to expose it to the global market and see if you have any questions.
Do you have any insight into when you internationalize, what we were talking about before you started, when you do internationalize your app, how much more traction you get as opposed to something that's international?
Yeah. So one way that I'm a big proponent of tracking everything. And so how I do this is Google Analytics. If you guys use Google Analytics at all, so you can install the Google Analytics SDK. And then what I'll do is you can actually, on the app startup, you give it a Google Analytics key. So when my apps, say you just have a US app or whatever, you just fire up the US app and it fires off and it starts tracking all of the interactions from the US. Now, if you want to see whoever's using it in the Spanish locale, to see that traffic upon app startup, you can create a different Google Analytics key. So they're called channels in Google Analytics. You create a different channel. That one's called maybe your Spanish channel. And when the app starts from that, you give it a different key. So now when the app starts up with a switch languages, boom, all of a sudden it starts using this new analytics key for Spanish. So you can actually start looking through Google Analytics to actually see that most users in the US follow these pipelines and these flows throughout your app. Once someone switches to Spanish, they don't even go down the flow pipelines. So it's kind of like, oh, it's a red flag. And that's how I want them to go, but they're going this other way. Maybe the text is wrong. Maybe it's spelled wrong. So that's how you can handle it. You can also do the same thing with flurry analytics, I believe you can do. A couple of the analytics frameworks out there, but I've used Google before, and it's worked pretty good to kind of see the traffic flows. Does that kind of answer your question, or what you're looking for, kind of how often people are using it in that perspective?
No, I was thinking more along the lines of like, let's say you internationalize your app and you release the dollar countries, and I would assume that in those other countries you would get less downloads than if you did translate it in the actual language.
How I do
I'm
it?
trying to figure out what kind of balance you actually get in those foreign countries by translating.
No, I don't have any hard numbers on that, unfortunately. It's hard to kind of tell.
Right. I mean, it's kind of.
How does CrossFit? I thought you translated was it called CrossFit? I don't remember your name you were after.
CrossFit travel.
Did you internationalize it?
I'm in the process of internationalizing. I'm redesigning the UI and then internationalizing to Portuguese and Spanish. Because it just happens to be that a lot of people who speak Portuguese and Spanish really like CrossFit too, so it's kind of weird. So it's one of those. It's another experiment of mine to see if purchases are going to pick up. Now I sell
so
the app.
you'll know. Seems like you kind of get a sense that.
So I do, yeah. So in that sense, if it's a free app, it's kind of hard to tell. Like, all right, where's everyone downloading? Unless the market has a chip. But for purchases, you go to Google Checkout. It'll actually tell you where it was from. The language code saying this is what it was bought at. It translates to $1.99 for you. So you can actually see it in your Google Analytics. Assuming your Google Checkout. So that would be a way.
A comment and a question. My comment's quick. So, I did some work. I worked on software in Japan for a while, and just one thing, it seems like the X symbol, like, people have a checkbox, and X tends to mean no in Japan. So we think it's checked, and they think it means no, and the clear is yes. So I always now just use use literally a checkbox and not an X, whatever.
Oh.
And then the other comment though is on my dashboard for publishing, I have all this description of my app. I have all this text. Do I have an option to say how that appears for different countries? I've never noticed if there is one.
Let's check it out real quick. Log into mine. New APKs, so this is where you can actually specify different support for different features. Right here.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, so here you can actually change. So you can add the listing details right here for these countries. So it's not as comprehensive as the supported countries list, but it does look like you can. Well, it's actually, this is just a language, so this actually covers probably the equivalent of that. So you have Portuguese, which cover all Portuguese countries, Spanish, so they're just kind of defaulting back.
And that will then let me change the title, description, all that for whatever language you click on.
Yeah, so the cool thing here is it's got notices. You select France, Dutch, Italian. Check this, so it'll auto-translate it based upon Google Translate.
Yes.
Yeah, I guess if we select Spanish. Spanish up here, yeah, you can change the title.
Ooh.
So I'm going to go back to English. Back here.
Interesting.
I just didn't know that. That's good. Cancel that.
Yeah, sorry.
That's all right. No, that's deleted the wrong one. Yeah, we can do that. The images, I guess you can't change the image here, but you probably want your.
It's okay. Yeah, I just noticed the image. I use some text in my marketing images, and I realized it doesn't let you place it. For like the large banner ad.
Yeah,
that
like
you
this
have
one
at the
here,
top.
the big one, the feature graphic, the 512, 1024 one.
But that's okay. It's not a whole lot of text.
Yeah.
Keep the English simple.
Here's some changes, so here's all the just changed, we hit autofill, see how it changed. All these were 140, so since I did it earlier today, the euro markets have moved. So it's that fast. Autofill, dropped it. And you can also exclude countries here, which is interesting. So publish to the rest of the world except for a certain country for whatever reason. Maybe if you animal rights or you watch whale wars and you don't want to publish it to Japan for whatever reason, I mean that could be your deal, you know. You could do your restrictions. You want to do. But yeah, you can do restricting, and then you can also check it out here. So this is the devices thing I was telling you about. So here's all of the devices. So maybe if you know that it doesn't run well on the street, which there are problems on the street, you can exclude it from running on the street and it won't show up in the user's market. Which is kind of nice too, because
But, I mean,
it's 555 devices. I mean, it's insane. Science.
so, you know how in the beginning of the talk we were talking about what Android goes through.
Yeah.
Reviewers, there'll be half the devices that protect the world. Do you think that the recent patent infringement stuff and the Google stuff, wars and all that, do you think that's going to affect the growth of Android at all? Or do you think that's...
I think in my opinion, at the end of the day, I think someone's going to settle. I think someone's going to fork out a whole bunch of cash and say, here, just forget about it. I think the numbers are so high right now, it's getting mitigated on. So I don't think it's going to have an effect on it because the growth right now of Android is so fast as it is, and just more developers are backing it up, and it's just taking up more and more developers actually have a lot of money doing it. And Google's taking off. The military's picking up Android now to do certain projects and so forth. So I can only see them being subsidized large enough from external forces to be able to litigate and hopefully settle at some point. The lawsuit from Oracle has been going on for a while now, and they were supposed to kill Android, and Android still skyrocketing pace. Based upon history, hopefully it continues that route. Even though I would prefer to write everything in C#. Hopefully they move up to Java 7. Any other questions? You guys have any apps you guys are moving to international markets at all or thinking about it?
Only the international audience rather than the international market. I'm working on an app for a nonprofit. I'm not actually working on a contract with Spark Design, and it's for an Ottawa chapter. It's a guide to nature areas and hikes in our area. And so what we would see is that tourists coming in would, buy a $25 color guide to, the local wildlife, but they might want to see what they can go to really close to where they're staying and, see some native birds they would see anywhere else.
Yep.
So I guess what we would do is we would go to probably the Arizona Tourism Board and ask them what their statistics are on foreign travelers.
Yep.
And then maybe not in the first version, but in an update, you might choose, like the number one user. I'm going to guess it's going to be Mexico, but we don't know. It could be China.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So, might choose that, and I just think it would make it even more appealing. But as nonprofits, we're all competing for the same pot of money, and with the economy's down, it's pretty exciting for me to apps to generate funds that not only does the app itself support the mission, but also the income from its transmission organizations.
Yeah.
And then we're just dying to do something with the Angry Birds thing, except make it more like an educational game. Something that parents would like, something gets a mission across and generates money and get a certain share of the Angry Birds. So that's just something we have in the back of my mind. And now that would have an international audience because it would just be
Most likely the users coming in from those international Germany or China, wherever they're coming from, probably still going to have their phones set to, their native language, Cantonese, be it German or whatever it is, or Spanish. So if you guys are the tourism board, say, hey, here's stats, and Spanish and Cantonese, and those definitely where I'd go back at. And as long as the development firm you're working with is put everything in strings file, which hopefully they do, it's going to be real easy for you guys to translate and identify everything in all, especially if you find one on Google.com or any of that nature.
Yeah, the only thing we've kind of run into is that they have to understand biological terms as opposed to, so they've done some translations of just some of the local guys that have been kind of embarrassing because they've chosen the wrong Spanish word. I don't even remember who had translated it. So, if we just kind of, if we find like a starving naturalist somewhere in Mexico City, that we did the right thing.
Yeah, that's a good point. You got to find the right person who knows that.
Yeah, not somebody who's just
wording.
using the dictionary, but actually understands the context of the word.
Kind of makes sense. Well, it makes sense for my app as well for fitness exercises and explaining fitness exercise.
Yeah, because you did have some really bizarre phrase, and that's what happened with a book that our state organization did some years ago, and they're giving out guidebooks. I just want to get rid of it because it's an embarrassment. But who knew
Yep.
to say that I don't need a translator, I need a translator who's a specialist in this area.
Which is kind of lucky in regards to Groupon, who I worked with. They actually have a global center. They have global offices, so they actually just had people who work for the company just translate. So it was nice because they already knew the business model. They knew, when we're talking about a deal or a coupon or a discount, like what we were talking about. So they usually give us the correct translations back. We've had some corrections, but it has to be nothing, no crazy Spanglish or anything like that. Kind of thing.
Yeah, because I've heard a lot of times when you send the screen reader, they have to send over the context of the screen readers to sometimes just words.
That's a good point to bring up, guys. I'll add that to the presentation. Yes, that's a very good point.
I'm lucky with wildlife because people use the biological names, which are international. So, in that instance, we probably just take out a bunch of text that uses a common name and just use the scientific name, and then make it easier.
So for other marketing collateral, I can say that I have a website that promotes one of my apps, and jQuery has a really nice translate feature. So you can literally have I have a button on one of the websites that says translate to Spanish, translate to German, those two languages specifically, and they're just buttons. And it's one call with jQuery calls Google Translate. And I don't know, looking over it seems to be a reasonable job, at least for German and Spanish, because there's a lot of users contributing to the quality of the translator. So that's one. Unfortunately, the other marketing asset I have is a YouTube video, and I don't know if that. I'm curious to see what resources they have to protect what user maybe have subtitles.
Yeah, maybe sometimes, yeah.
I don't know what they have.